Stephen, and a pleasure to be here at ConnectCon.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. And before we even get into the transcendence in the metaverse, I have to ask you, what was the true motivation behind the microchip, the capsule in the hand? How did you, that's truly transcending into the metaverse, right? You're really doing the Neo Matrix move right there. Walk me through that thought process.
Yeah, so one of my friends who's listed on the 30 most influential voices in the metaverse says that I'm the first citizen. So I don't know if that's true, but I'll take it.
Well, you have the ID to prove it.
It's a really long story, you know, that I can go all the way back to childhood, but I'll try not to. I'll try to be brief. So basically, I'll go back to, I have a scientific background. It goes back to physics when I was, starting off doing, research when I was a teenager. And then I ended up I was going to study physics, ended up studying cognitive science, which was sort of this new field that was bringing to light at the time artificial intelligence and human-machine interaction. And so, everything we use today, any interface or any of that really has to do with a lot of the things that we learned in cognitive science, basically, which is the science of mind, which pretty much understands how we interact with everyday things, and particularly with machines in this case. So fast forward. And then I worked for a long time in the digital, sphere. I worked in digital agencies, early part of the early web agencies. I worked in startups, that was working on early internet by mobile phone. And then so all of that was earlier in New York, and then I moved to Europe. I've been living between Paris and London for the last 20 years, and I kept doing a lot of that. But by that point, I'd started working on my art. I don't have a background or any kind of education in art, except the education that I've given myself, which I give myself an extensive one in the history of art and then in studio art making. So, but I kept working in digital for a long time, and then about 7 years ago, I was able to let it go and just focus on my artwork. At that point, I was, because I didn't go through sort of the traditional art world, I was looking at different ways to sort of promote my work, make my work known, and even to finance my work. And around 2017, well, I knew about crypto earlier than that, but because I was trying to get out of the digital world towards making physical art, which is funny because now it's sort of all caught up with me and everything has become digital again. But my work was always partly digital, partly physical. I've been making paintings for years that combine digital techniques with manual techniques. Hybrids, what I call the new synthesis, basically, the thesis being the traditional way, the antithesis being the digital way, and then the synthesis being the combination of the two. So my work has always been about combining things that were very, very different, right? So when I finally discovered crypto, really, it was 2017, and I discovered that companies were using it as a way of financing themselves through these things called ICOs, initial coin offerings. I also discovered that artists were beginning to use this technology, people like Kevin Abosch, people like that, to actually make art. And I thought, wow, that's fascinating. So I thought, well, this could be an interesting way to, at once, make an artwork and have that artwork be the financial engine, almost, of how I would finance my work, which is quite expensive to make a lot of it. So a long time ago, I've always been very fascinated by the stock market, by financial markets, and I actually looked at one point at actually creating a sort of stock to represent myself as an artist, as an art project, but also as a financial vehicle. So when I discovered ICOs, that seemed like a very natural thing. About at the same time, I started reading about these, microchips that could actually be sort of implanted, into the human body. And I ended up not doing the ICO because they were becoming more and more regulated by the SEC and other, government agencies that that monitor sort of financial transactions and financial instruments and things like that. But I kept the idea, and at the same time, I was discovered by someone who's finishing their master's thesis in blockchain and art. Her name is Jess Holgrave, and a few months after that, she included me in her master's thesis, what I was trying to do with ICOs, and then a few months later, she created a company called Codex Protocol, which was a registry of art on the blockchain. And I thought, well, this is great. I'll register my work on the blockchain. But then I realized, wow, I could really combine these two ideas, the microchip and the registry. And I could register not just an artwork, but I can register myself as the artist self on the blockchain, right? So the first registry was called This Is My Body of Work. And then afterwards it became another registry was terms of use, because I had to create a sort of terms of use of how sort of my information was going to be used, and especially once I started generating data from myself. I'll explain that a little bit more, but
yeah, I would love that. I'd love that deep dive in generating data on the NFT and it's stored on the NFT. Yeah.
Sure. So the first step was the registry, which was called This Is My Body, and then This Is My Body of Work. So the idea was this is a register of myself, but this is also a registry of all of my artwork that's output from myself, right? And then came the idea of, okay, what if I went further? What if I pushed this thing really? And I started actually creating, once I got into creating NFTs, which is a whole other story. But once I got into creating NFTs, I realized that this could be an NFT where I could actually generate data coming from my body. So that's everything from my location, heartbeat, how much I've slept, walked, everything, the standard stuff you get from a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or whatever. And essentially put that into, encapsulate that into an actual sort of dashboard. And that would be sort of a record of my existence on a daily basis. And then little by little, I started developing other projects, brainwave projects, all of these kinds of things that can detect everything that I am, all of these all of these types of selves, right? So we're basically lots of different selves. We're a civic self, a sort of government self, or a government identity and all that. We're financial selves. We're also an emotional self. We're a medical self, a health self, all of these things. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a group of networked NFTs, an ecosystem of NFTs that sort of represent everything maybe that a human being could be, how we could be represented in terms of data, even our emotional selves. I'm actually developing a project using an AI to detect how I'm feeling or to estimate what it thinks I'm feeling, and to actually transmit that every 30 minutes. It'll say, Lance is hungry, Lance is, whatever. I am hungry, I am thirsty, I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm happy, I'm sad, whatever.
Now here's the question, is that all going to be accessible? I want to take two steps back.
Yes.
Two questions. Your body of work, is that tied to each product? Is it an additional NFT with each piece of work that someone would receive from buying your work?
Well, okay, so there are a number of things here. First of all, I have physical work. So my physical work, like paintings or sculpture, those are all accompanied by NFTs. There's an NFT. If you look, at my work on Instagram at Lance King, or on my site, lanceking.com, you'll see basically that I make a lot of works where you see a painting that's also attached to a screen. So it looks like a strange hybrid with like a painting that has an outgrowth of a digital screen, right? So that's something we're not used to seeing in art. So that's basically a painting that's in itself is part digital, part handmade, and then the screen, which is the digital NFT, right? So already I'm doing that's already a hybrid, right? So and then I have pure NFTs that are just digital artwork, that are sold on Nifty Gateway and all the major sites, Makerspace, Super, and all that. But my major project, the seed of everything, is this project Network of Self, which is a project that will last for the rest of my life. It's basically a programmable, evolutive NFT. So that means it will change over time. It will grow. I will add new modules, and basically it's one project that's made up of lots of little projects. And it's funny because I almost sold it. It was curated to be sold at Christie's last May, and I pulled the project from sale because
why did you pull that project?
I felt like it wasn't developed far enough, for one thing, and the other thing is I wasn't sure I wanted it to be owned by one person. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually going to fractionalize it, turn it into a DAO, and have it as a collection that's owned by as many people who want to own it. So basically, maybe there'll be, 1,000 owners or 10,000, whatever, but it'll be owned by a group of people, and basically it'll be sort of sold off in fractions, right? So you can buy a piece of it essentially, and it'll be a coin called Self, And basically, if you own that coin, it's like a governance token. It's a token called selfing. You'll be able to sort of control what happens with that collection, even after I'm dead.
Wow.
That collection of work will exist, and it will be a record of a human being and all of their data. Now, here's the thing about this, because I'm not a person who's pro cyborgism or pro transhumanism. I'm not telling everybody to implant microchips and things like that. And I'm not telling everyone to share their data. I'm actually an extremely private person. So one, implanting something in my body, and I'm a person who has no tattoos, no piercings, so the fact that I've done that is already like very uncomfortable for me. And every time I touch the thing and wake up in the morning and I realize it's still there, it's, even though it's, it's just under my hand here, like the size of 2 grains of rice, it's very uncomfortable for me. Sharing my data is extremely uncomfortable for me, but I'm doing it as a way of like sort of alerting us to a lot of issues about data sovereignty, self-sovereign identity, data privacy, our rights regarding our data and our information and all of that, right?
So
and also, yeah.
No, I was going to say, are you securing this? Is this your artistic way when you're looking at art, technology, and consciousness of securing your DNA, your consciousness? And you said you're not a fan of a cyborg, but let's be a little crazy. Say a company purchased those assets and they could use it for that. But I wanted to get to a real interesting question. We have a few artists inside here, and before we get to Q&A, in this process of taking the extreme when at the convergence of art, technology, and consciousness, which I find that's what that is. Are there any just tidbits, 2 or 3 bits of advice to speak with the artists and the technologists inside the audience of what kind of not to do? And their pursuit of merging the metaverse with the physical world and that artistic and transcendence of what you would think that they should maybe steer away from.
Right, interesting. Well, if you're a traditional artist, I think it's very important to be really aware of what's happening right now. This is the first time in a long time the art world has been disrupted, probably in 100 years or more. Not disrupted in terms of art itself, like great artists coming along and disrupting, like a Warhol or something. But art is usually quite behind when it comes to technology, and suddenly it's been pulled kicking and screaming into the 21st century. So you have to be aware that this is happening, and it's really going to change the way the art market operates. So be learn about it, learn as much as you can about how physical art interacts with NFTs, and how you can make work that's purely digital, or even if you're a performance artist or video artist, how you can transform that into an NFT, and how that opens up a world market for you, really. So it's not really a warning. It's more like you need to get involved and be aware of it, and try to find a way to use it to promote your work and to distribute and sell your work. It's some people are using the technology to actually make work, and that's interesting. But you can also use the technology as a way to track your work, track the sale, track the resales, and even potentially make a percentage every time your work is resold, which is the first time we've been able to do that. Actually
monetize in perpetuity.
Right, exactly.
Your families can hopefully survive and thrive off of the work that when you maybe gone from there. And as we speak about new projects, we speak about interesting projects. Your collaboration with You're Not Box out of Barcelona.
Right.
And would you mind telling the audience just a little bit more? I don't know if you have a presentation, but explain to them a little bit more about that. Fantastic.
Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is, I don't know how much you've seen so far today, but we've all probably spent a lot of time looking at images, looking at all of our different apps and what have you, probably following some of the presentations here. So I'm going to ask you just to close your eyes for 15 seconds and just quiet for 15 seconds and close your eyes. When you close your eyes, I want you to look to see the light that's sort of bouncing off your inner eyelids, the patterns that are forming. Okay. Right. And just breathe deeply just for 5 more seconds. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay. 0. Now you've taken your first step to 0. So this project is called 0. Okay. If we can go to the next slide. Can we advance? Okay, very good. Okay, here we are. We're in the shaman's cave. Let's talk about the origins of art, right? We can trace the origins of art to the shaman's cave. The shaman was the first artist, a kind of magician as well. There were no technologists, so magic, technology, it's almost the same thing. And the shaman was also the spiritual man, basically, or woman in some cases. These practices were linked. Art, magic, spirituality, all of these things were linked. And for the shaman, by entering into a trance state, maybe even induced by some sort of psychedelics or some other method, dance, whatever, they transcended to other planes and to other dimensions, right? And when in this state, or maybe afterwards, when they were after this state, they actually created artworks in the sort of deepest caves on the cave walls to visualize their experiences. We often think that they're just drawing what they saw in real life, but actually through research, we now know by studying the patterns of when we are in a state of trance or altered states, studying what we've seen, psychologists and neurologists have actually figured out that they were actually drawing things they were seeing whilst in a trance state, right? So one thing we know is that art expands the human imagination. It pushes humanity forward, pushes humanity to evolve, and it really advances civilization. It did that then, and it's still doing it now. So perhaps today's techno artist, let's call them, will be the shaman of our time. They'll go into this new dimensional plane that we call the metaverse and create some amazing things. So let's go to the next slide. So 0 is a collaboration, began as a collaboration between two artists. That's me and Yonat Vax. Yonat is an Israeli artist who's based in Barcelona. It was meant to be a work of art about technology and spirituality. For lack of a better word, let's use spirituality, although I tend to shy away from it because it has a connotation and people think we're talking about religion or something like that, and that's totally not where we're going here. But this project that began as a work of art and technology and spirituality grew into something that we think will be extraordinary, and we're calling it 0. And 0 is our goal, our objective is to offer the most transcendent experiences in the burgeoning metaverse. What does that mean? We'll eventually get to what we really mean by transcendence. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next. There might be one missing, but it's okay. Well, over the next few months, or over the last few months, and certainly over the next, you have seen and will see many very stimulating NFT and metaverse projects. It's just the beginning because we're still early. 0's goal is to be something completely different. So we're putting to use all of the emerging technologies, whether it's AR, VR, NFTs, digital personae, all of that to offer a pervasive and ubiquitous experience that we think will open new dimensions and raise consciousness. And our goal basically is to, even though it's about transcendence and the spirit, the human spirit, and things like that, we want to make it interesting. We're going to actually gamify that. So we're literally creating a gamified transcendent space, but it's going to be unlike any other game in the space at all, right? So what we're building, we're building a team that includes experts in cognitive science, which is also my own background, neuroscience, psychedelics, and even the science of consciousness. And this team will collaborate also with creators of sensory devices, such as brain-computer headsets, which will be a whole big thing for us. There are many companies now that are actually beginning to offer these brain-computer headsets. I'm not talking about Neuralink, like Elon Musk actually inserting something in your brain. We're talking about like just something that you wear on your head that will allow a sort of new form of interactivity with what's happening probably on a VR screen or an AR screen, where you can actually sort of use your mind to control what's going on the screen. And so this will provide a new approach to user experience. And this will allow everyone to be one with the zero. Let's go to the next slide, if we can. Right. So what we're doing is we're starting this project off with the offer of 8,888 NFTs. The number 8 means many things in the sort of world of transcendence. So you'll see it come up a lot in this project. The number 8 will be seen again and again. Basically, these 8,888 NFTs are essentially keys to what we call the zero portals. The zero portals basically will give you access to this sort of virtual shaman's cave, and the sale and trading of the NFTs will actually fund the development and the launch of this project, and the in-game operations and trading and things like that linked to all of these exercises and experiences will actually continue to fund the project. But we'll get into that maybe a bit more later on. So what are the NFTs? The NFTs are very special works of art developed by Jonat and myself, and also our creative technologists. And the artwork is going to be a generative, and there will be some very surprising innovations, such as unique animations and interactivity, which we don't always see in generative art. Most of all, they're not just conceptual, they're very beautiful. And more important than that, they will have utility, and the utility will vary depending on when you buy them, how much you interact with the community. They will vary in power and rarity. So,
fantastic.
Next slide, please. And then we only have a couple more to go, and I'll try to speed up if we need to.
All right, we only have about 4 minutes in this session.
Okay, so for now, all I can show you is this, which is this black ice cream, and all I can tell you is everyone loves ice cream. And this is the beginning of the visualization of what the NFT is, but they'll grow from here. But every time you see this symbol, the black ice cream, you'll know that we're going towards zero. So basically, go to the next slide, please. So Zero makes use of some very innovative tech to make sure that your NFTs are permanent and accessible. We're working with Arweave to ensure that the NFTs are verifiable, trustless, and decentralized. And you'll be able to connect your own MetaMask to our site to use to access your unique NFTs. And we're also using our own smart contracts. So no matter what happens to Zero or anything in the future, your NFTs will be permanent no matter what happens. So you will always have that. The next slide, basically, we're putting together an amazing team. If you go to the Zero, THEZ or ZERO.io, THEZERO.io, you will see all the information about our team. We have a really amazing team. Even since this presentation was built, we've added some incredible people. We've brought on someone who's going to be a CEO, which is funny because this started out as an art project. Didn't realize it would grow into a company and a startup and investors and all of that. But that's what's happening. It's all being run out of Barcelona, but we're very international. We have people based in Thailand who's doing our community coming on right now. Really, really fantastic team, which includes Jonat, who's a brilliant artist, Alex, who's and Sandra, who are both OGs going back to 2011. They've launched about 30 different companies in sort of incubator. They've started all kinds of conferences and we're very, very early involved in the crypto space. So they really know what they're doing. It's going to be a great project.
It sounds like a fantastic project already.
Yeah. So I'm sorry we don't have time for questions. Please feel free to contact me. I'm lance@thezero.io or lance@lanceking.com. If you go to lanceking.com, you'll see more information about my other project as well. And that will link you to here. It's the same on Twitter. It's @LanceKing, LANSKING on Twitter and on Instagram. And I'm easy to find everywhere on LinkedIn, what have you. Feel free to throw questions at me if you want, and we can always set up another session. I also run on Tuesdays at 2:30 EST, Eastern Standard Time, 2:30 with some people in Paris. I run the Metaverse show, and if you want to reach me there as well, if you have more questions, feel free. So, and maybe we'll do something on this app in the future. Any thoughts, questions with our last minute? Nina, did you have a quick question? I don't know how much time we have allotted, but. I don't know who's moderating.
Okay.
Stefania, are you moderating?
I really want to ask you the question.
Yes.
This question is, today physical art galleries are wrestling with how best to display NFT art. What experience beyond the artwork NFT art provides? Right.
Okay, so you're saying what experience can they possibly provide within the gallery space?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've seen some successful, I've seen some successful exhibitions that actually just use screens. I'm used to using screens with my work, so because I often do work that combine both the physical work and screens, so I'm comfortable with that. Yeah, I think the best way for now, at least perhaps until we go into VR and AR, I would say, there's nothing wrong with putting screens in the gallery. We do it certainly for video art, and so we can continue, I think, to do the same. And of course, I think it's important for every gallery to either have their platform or to participate in a platform to help their artists manage their NFTs, and also to show and share and sell and distribute the NFTs using their own platform, or at least connected to their own site. So it doesn't have to be bought on their site, but it could at least be displayed on their site. So I think galleries need to see this as an opportunity to expand beyond the real space, between the real space, and expand into the virtual space. It's their opportunity to be part of the metaverse. I don't know if I've answered your question.
All right. Thank you, Room, so much for joining us, Lance. Thank you again.
Thank you.